northeastern Ohio and then over here to northwestern Ohio. And one of the things that I was very intrigued with when I looked at this position was I've been doing a lot of work in northeastern Ohio on recruitment and retention into the workforce and how community attributes really drive the economy of the region and how there's a real balance between natural resources and the prosperity of a region. And I was very fascinated with northwestern Ohio because Toledo has an amazing tight urban density. You know, we have the second highest urban density of any of the cities in the large cities of Ohio. But we haven't sprawled out like Dayton or Columbus or Cleveland. Our footprint is relatively small. And to the east of us, when you consider the federal lands and the state lands of Maumee Bay and the federal wildlife refuges, there's about 13,000 acres there. And to the west of us, with all of the properties associated with the Oak Openings Partnership, there's about 13,000 acres there as well. So if you were to think of any Midwestern city that was bracketed by 26,000 acres of open space, not to mention the parks that are within the city limits and within the footprint of the county itself, there's a real remarkable opportunity to take and marshal those forces and leverage those resources to change the face of the region. We have things in this region and with this city that are unique to the Midwest, and in fact, unique to Ohio and even a multi-state area. And like Jeff was talking about, people coming from out of the area to visit the zoo and the art museum, we have folks coming from a 5-mile or a 5-hour drive time to visit our Metroparks, and we have some very unique resources here as well, so we'll talk about this.
Hi, I'm Brian Kennedy. I'm originally from Dublin in Ireland. I was there until my mid-30s. I found art history quite early and worked at the National Gallery of Ireland for 8 years. It's a 150-year-old institution, a national institution, and I went from there to a much younger one, the National Gallery of Australia in Canberra. So I've kind of got a long way around to get to Toledo, and came to America in 2005. And I had 5 years at Dartmouth College working with 18 to 22-year-olds and graduate students there, and, you know, really talented young people. As I began to work my way to thinking what way one could use a great art museum in contemporary life, and in 2006 I came to Toledo for the opening of the Glass Pavilion, and I'd always heard about Toledo because of works of art that we've shown internationally at exhibitions, but it's completely knocked out by the collection. And I began to think, after being in 2 national institutions and a wonderful university institution, in terms of a civic institution, unfortunately a totally private one, right, that wasn't getting public funds, but also one that was totally free. What way could you revive and explore the whole notion of, on the one hand, the city beautiful, which founded the Toledo Museum of Art, and on the other hand, art education, which is its basic purpose. And so tying these 2 things together is the word design. So how could we design a city for the future again with all the people who are here? And the key to that really is engaging young people and infusing all the ideas of the digital age and virtual age with what is the world of art museums, which is effectively physical objects. And so working a whole art education platform has been my basic goal. So we can talk more about that later.
I'd like to just start off, and I'd like to know, each of you have very different objectives and initiatives in the community, but I'd like to know what, in each of your opinions, you think is the most significant or exciting thing that's happening at each of your organizations, and how you think that might impact the community, or how you see that ripple effect happening. Whoever would like to start.
We're just wrapping up a very comprehensive planning process where we've been looking at our carrying capacity, our service delivery capabilities, and business modeling and sustainability. In addition to that, we've visited a half a dozen projects or so that were put on hold back in the 5, 6, 7 years ago. And so we planned out moving forward with developing and opening approximately 7 new Metroparks across the county. Okay, so it's a very exciting time. And in the process of doing that, we've created this inventory of opportunities. I mean, I think probably most of you are familiar with the UT Trail. You know, well, what we've done is we've gridded the county off, and we've looked at opportunities on how to link parks to parks and parks to population centers. And so we'll start shopping that around the county, and depending upon how people respond to that, how communities respond to that, we'll move forward. But I think Jeff just put a map up that just shows where these project areas are across the county. So they're spread across the entire county. The dark green areas are the existing Metroparks and existing open space areas. So we have 3 of them over in the Oak Openings area. We have one down at Blue Creek, which is down by White House. We have the Swan Creek corridor. We have the Middle Grounds downtown. We have Fallen Timbers Battlefield. We have Manhattan Marsh up at the north end of town, and Howard Farm over to the far east. So these are all projects that we have intentions of bringing online over the next 5 to 10 years. And then the opportunities to connect those together with existing parks is what I'm referring to as far as the regional trail system. So that's it's a 20-year vision with a 10-year capital build out and the opportunity to grow the staff as we need. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
Well, at the museum, we're involved in something called the 2020 vision. So you can see 2020 by 2020. We're halfway through it, the 10-year plan, and it's been very, very exciting. And we feel we're involved with everybody because we're doing something pretty radical. I mean, most art museums, you say, what do you do? They say, well, you collect, preserve, display, exhibit works of art. We don't. We say we're about art education. So we're trying to adapt the use of a collection to teach people how to see. I mean, I challenge you that I've not yet found somebody who ever did a course at school or college on how to see. I don't mean biology. I mean about visual language, about the language of forms, the language of ideas, the language of meaning, the language of symbols. These are separate visual languages. We can teach them. And it's kind of amazing that, we take in 90% of the information we take in from the world with our eyes, but we never actually learn how to see. So what we're doing is radical. And the way we're doing it is to leverage the collection, which is a way to teach people how to see. And the most exciting part of it, I think, is with Toledo Public Schools. We've been at this for 4 years, and we've just had an International Visual Literacy Conference last week, which was just fabulous. And people from all over the world at the museum. And we've been piloting projects this fall, and the most exciting one involves kids from Toledo Public School who are in 2 groups. There's 2 cohorts, effectively. One is a control group, and the other is an experimental group. So the idea would be use evidence-based research. You're going to have Garmin's Durant just later. And if we can actually show that teach people how to see better has actually an important and strong impact on their critical thinking, then you can scale it up and you can replicate it, and not just in this city, but all over the country. And so that's what Toledo Museum's Arts ambition is. We have this site, vislit.org, and by January, February, it's going to be really exploding content. So we're in the business of revitalizing and contributing to the revitalization of Toledo, and frankly, making Toledo famous.
And the zoo is also finishing up a master plan. This next year we will be reopening our aquarium. That'll finish after 2.5 years of renovation. It's a $25 million project. It kind of brings together sort of the 2 prongs of our next strategic plan that we're working on. It's a very important place for Toledoans. I think of it, as a cultural asset and as a space for the community. And it's amazing the number of people that will tell you stories about this aquarium or stories about the zoo that are important to them from their youth or from experiences they've had there with their family or with some of their ancestors, so on and so forth. And so we're excited to be able to open that this next year, but we're also really working on what we plan on doing for the next 10 years. And we're looking at it from 2 different sort of perspectives. One, like I said before, we're really interested in doing everything we can to improve the economy and the situation, how Toledo is viewed by the rest of the country. We employ, between our full-time and part-time staff, about 1,000 people every year have jobs at Toledo Zoo. What we're looking at is ways that we can draw more and more people from outside of Northwest Ohio to Northwest Ohio to take advantage not just of our zoo, not just of our experience, but the rest of Toledo as well. Right now, we bring in about 950,000 people a year to the zoo. That's about 150% of the metro area, if you use the largest definition for what our metro area is. Most zoos in the country of our size or larger are lucky to bring in between 2 and 20% of their metro areas. So, and that sounds like a tiny amount, but when we actually looked at the 355 organizations that are similar to us in what they offer experience-wise, the average size of a metro population in which those were located was 2.5 million people. So most of the zoos, most of the people in my profession that run zoos have never really had to think about running a zoo as a business. They just had to open their doors. And you could capture 2 to 20% of the people that walked through the gate, and that was enough to keep you going, without really thinking about what it was you were trying to accomplish with your mission. So on the one hand, we're trying to think about how we can affect the overall quality of life in Toledo and the economics of Toledo. But we're also thinking of it, we have to think of it as, what is our mission? How are we doing it? How are we going to accomplish it? More importantly, how are we going to measure it? So our mission is one of trying to get people to join us in caring for animals and conservation in general. And so we are building new exhibits, we're building new programs that are fixated mostly on our local region and allow us to plug the community members directly into those programs. One that we've been working on for a little bit is sort of spearheading into this larger conservation program is with these hellbender salamanders. How many people know what a hellbender is? One. You know what a hellbender is. Two. It's a huge salamander. It's about this big. Used to live in the southwestern rivers of the state. They're almost gone. Interestingly, though, the regulations on water quality have changed all their habitat.